So, hello everyone, and welcome to day two or the second part of our launch event. Um, so thank you again for joining us wherever you are joining us in the world. And this is for the launch of our second issue of Rewrite Reads. For those joining today, I'm Zara, the editor of the magazine, and we've got another exciting lineup of speakers today. But before we get into it, I'm just going to give another bit about our literary magazine and also Rewrite. So Rewrite Reads is a lit mag featuring outstanding writing by Black women and women of color from across the globe. We publish short stories, poetry, photo essays, and thought-challenging pieces from established and emerged voices. We launched in November 2019, and we had to pause for most of last year due to you know what, but now we are up and running. And here I want to give a major thanks to Resourcing Racial Justice for making this issue possible through their fund. I'm going to give a bit of background on Rewrite London, which the literary magazine is part of. And Rewrite London is an award-winning platform for Black women and women of color writers around the world. It was founded in 2018. It's a community organization and it supports and champions Black women and women of color writers, provides the tools, the space, and confidence needed to achieve their writing goals through writing courses, workshops, masterclasses, and we also review books of all genres written by Black women and women of color. Simply put, Rewrite exists to rewrite this narrative, and you can find out more on rewritelondon.com. Now, since the launch of our literary magazine in 2019, we have published almost 30 pieces from writers living in different parts of the world, including Colombia, the Netherlands, Nigeria, South Africa, the UK, and USA. And our second issue was themed changes, and our writers all approach this subject in different ways. In total, we had 17 writers featured in this issue. Yesterday, 3 of them joined us, and today we have another 3. I'm gonna just give a brief bio of them before we go into the main event. So first is Angela Jimu, who has a photo essay called Land of the Lake. Angela is a visual storyteller who studied at the Market Photo Workshop in South Africa. Angela is also the co-founder of the ZAFP, which is www.zafp.org, and was a speaker at the 2018 World Press Photo Festival in Amsterdam. Angela is also a Chevening Scholarship alumni with an MA degree in media management. Then we have Tanisha Pratt, who wrote What Giddis Does Do to Guppies. Tanisha is a Bahamian poet, writer, and artist. Tanisha's poetic practice often experiments with performance and multimedia forms. And Tanisha is currently working on a lyrical collection which will explore love, trauma, and the inescapable blue. And finally, we have Jennifer Kelly, who wrote Searching. Jennifer is a New York City-based writer and social worker, and also the book reviewer editor at Rewrite. So without further ado, I'm going to bring to the stage, or I guess the virtual stage, Angela.
Thank you, Zara, for the introduction. It's lovely to be here, and it's lovely to be part of this launch. Thank you.
That is great, and it's so great to be here. Shortly, we'll show some of your photos, but before then, it would be really great for you to tell us a bit about Land of the Lake and why you submitted this particular series of photos to Rewrite Reads.
Okay. So I was born of a Zimbabwean mother and a Malawian father, but we grew up in Zimbabwe, and I'd never been to Malawi until 2018. And the narrative was that Malawi is poor, you don't want to go there. That was always the narrative that we grew up hearing. And then we were made fun of, like derogatory terms like, oh, you Brandaya or Mnyasarandi. Then Malawi was called Nyasaland. When my father went to Southern Rhodesia then, which is Zimbabwe, it was called Nyasaland. So we had all these derogatory terms. So then when I came in 2018 and I saw the people and I saw she was, it was my Malawi. I had heard so much about it. And when I
Hi, Angela. We seem to be losing you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm having unstable connection, but I do hope we pull through this.
I hope so too.
So when I came, I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the lake. So much I had heard of about the lake. My dad used to love fish quite a lot. And I just decided to take pictures. I could see pictures everywhere. And I wanted to share some of those pictures with the world because I do have them on my Instagram, but I wanted a wider audience to see Malawi in a different kind of light, like change the narrative kind of. That's why I submitted to Rewrite Reads, because I thought because of the wide audience, the wide reach. Yeah, so that's the long and short of it.
That's great. I want to delve deep a bit more into the photos. And I've actually been to Malawi 5 years ago, and there were some myths about Lake Malawi having crocodiles or hippos that could kill me or something, I was told. But we'll get into that later. But I thought it'd be really great if we can show some of your photos so that people watching can see it. So I wonder if that can be pulled up now. Thank you. So this one, I believe you called resting. Is that correct? I'm not sure if you can see the photo, Angela.
Yes, I
Yeah.
can see the
So
photo.
this one, yeah, I believe you called resting, right? And
Yes.
I felt so much calm, and I really wanted to know what was going on in this person's head while he was just chilling. And I wonder if we could see another one. Is that possible? And also, this one was after they had collected the fish, correct? And just resting
Yes, that
after
is
another day. So thank you
correct.
so much. So really, it'd be great to know why these particular images. What is it about Lake Malawi in particular that wanted you to really capture it for the world to see?
Okay, so should I start with the men resting
Oh
or the
yes,
fishermen?
please. The man resting. I really love that photo.
Okay. So what happened is that it was my first time to go to the beach of Lake Malawi, and I went to the nearest, which is 2 hours drive from Lilongwe, where I was staying. So I got there, and like I said, I could see pictures everywhere, and then I see this fisherman pulling in, and then he dresses his fish, and then he sits there just resting. And for me, that was like, wow, this is the moment where I needed to take that photo, because he's just there, lost in his own thoughts. He's just come back with his whole, he's made some cells, and he's just resting. So I just thought, this is it. The lake is such a peaceful place. It's a beautiful place. Even if you're working, you still have those moments where you can actually take time to breathe in and just admire the beauty of it.
That's amazing. Just seeing it, and I get what you're saying about admiring the beauty of it. And one thing I also wanted to find out more is your photos are striking, all five of them, and I wondered if we could delve a bit more into the power of images
Okay.
and what they can tell us about stories.
Okay. Okay. All right. Maybe I can talk a little bit about the second image, and then I can
Mm-hmm.
go talk about the power of the image. Okay. The second image is we had gone overnight for a music festival. It goes on for 3 days. So we went a day before it ended. And in the morning, when the sun was coming up, everyone was just so tired. But the festival was still going on. The music was still blasting in the background. And I see this guy, he's there. He's just lying there, soaking in the sun as it comes up. And I particularly loved the symbol on his hat, because then the previous evening into the morning there was Kenyatta Hill playing, and he was talking about chamba. Chamba is the local name for weed, and he was like, oh, weed needs to be legalized. because there's so much talk about weed in Malawi. A lot of people just say it's the best in the world. I wouldn't know about that, but that's what I heard. So here's talk about weed, and here's this guy resting, and he has that symbol of the weed. So I really liked it, and the sun's coming up. And then moving on to the power of the image. I went to South Africa in 2010 to study full-time photojournalism and documentary photography. And for me, one of the images that really compelled me to go and study was the famous image by the late Kevin Carter from South Africa. He was part of the Bang Bang Club. They used to document apartheid, and they went around the country doing that. There was this image of this child in Sudan. I wanted to say South Sudan. In Sudan, I don't know if you remember that image. This child is there, this child is malnourished, and in the background there's a vulture just waiting there to pounce on this child. And that image, it's always emblazoned on my mind, like, this is so powerful, because there's so much that goes on into looking at an image, and you can create a whole narrative about what is going on. So that is one of the most powerful images that I have seen. But also just looking at other people's work, one of my mentors, Ed Kashi, he's based in New Jersey. He does a lot of essays, and it's advocacy. He does his work through advocacy. There is one that he did about chronic kidney disease. And it's just so powerful, because then you are there in that moment, at that particular place. There's so much emotion that can be brought out through the image. And it can actually drive you to do something about what you're seeing. If it's a cause that you're seeing, someone is advocating for something, and then you are really drawn into that, and you can support it in whatever way you can. So I think the image is really powerful, and more powerful than words. Of course, you can put words to it, but sometimes there's no need for words. It's just the image, and then it pulls at your heartstrings, and then you do what you have to do. So I think the image is really powerful.
And it's really interesting what you said about putting words to it, and sometimes you put words to it and sometimes you don't. And it was actually the next question I wanted to ask you, as to what was it like putting words to your photos to then turn it into a photo essay?
It was a process. It was a process. Um, it wasn't very difficult though, because you know, when you're taking an image, you've already framed it in your mind. You know what you want to say. So then when you're putting words to it, of course, you have to interpret what the place, the time, but also, the context. Yes. So the words really contextualize what you're saying in the image.
That's really great. And what I also wanted to find out is actually go back to something you said about that powerful image from Sudan and what it captured. And it made me think of not only the power of an image to the viewers, but the impact a powerful image can have on the photographer. If I remember about that particular person, that image haunted them for most of their life. So do you also think, as a photographer, your response to a photo could have a, I don't know, like a detrimental impact, or not necessarily?
Okay. All right. So we are photographers, but I believe that we are human beings first. So there's a lot of things that you can actually see that you wish you did not see. You want to unsee those things, but there's always that, because you're a photographer, you have to do your job, but you're still a human being. I know he received a lot of backlash about that image, and we don't really know if that's what caused him to commit suicide, but he did commit suicide. And then you think about this image about the tank man, about China, and you're thinking, you're there, you're capturing the moments, xenophobia pictures, you see them. I remember this other one by James Otway as well. He's witnessing everything unfold in front of his eyes, someone getting attacked during xenophobic attacks. So what do you do as a photographer, as a human being? Do you just stand there? Do you just, do you help? So it's a very difficult thing to be able to separate the photographer in you, the human being in you. It's just something else. But some things you'd rather not see, but you have to be there to tell the story, because sometimes there's no one else to tell the story. So you just have to be there to tell the story.
And that is, and I love what you said about the photos as a way to witness things as they unfold. And going back to your photos, when looking at them, I felt like I was witnessing it as I was there. I was fishing, I was in the community. And your photo essay also said that Lake Malawi is not only a source of income and livelihood for people, but also a place for enjoyment and holiday. And I guess when you said your friends were there for a festival, that also began to capture it. I wonder, do you have more photos in Malawi, on Lake Malawi? What other visuals do you have for the world and for everyone?
Okay. Yeah, I do have them, but I had not prepared any other photos. I'm sorry about that.
Oh
I
no,
didn't
that's okay.
it. But I do have some other photos of Malawi, because the first time I came, I suppose it's the newness of a place. You see images.
Mm.
I was taking pictures of everything. I still can see a lot of images, but now I just don't whip out my camera everywhere. But there are lots of images. Last year I did an exhibition called Sunset and Dusk at Madsock Theatre here in Lilongwe, because the sunsets are so beautiful. Everything is beautiful at dusk. So I did a whole series of images on sunset and dusk. Um, and I just have so many images of Malawi. So yeah, I can prepare those.
Oh, obviously, I could stare at your images forever and ever. So I won't say no if you ever want to share with the world. But I guess it would be great to find out from you what's next with you.
What's next with me? Wow, we never know these days, do we?
True.
It's
That
one
is very true.
it's one day at a time. But I'm still here in Malawi. I'm here, as I always say, to claim my father's heritage and to show the other side, because I believe in, this is one of the things that really attracted me to your publication, you know, especially the first edition about new narratives. One of the reasons we founded the Zimbabwe Association of Female Photographers was to have a new narrative, because the industry is really male dominated. And after South Africa going back to Zim, trying to fit in, and you see, it's very difficult. Then we decided that we needed a platform for female photographers. So you're there, and then you have this platform because you want a new narrative. You want a different kind of narrative, because it's been seen uh, mostly by men, and they have a certain way of seeing things, and we have a certain way of seeing things. Even just reading through the reports of the World Press Photo, they have a publication that they bring out every year, and it talks about how photography in the world is still dominated by the global north, and
Mhm.
mostly Caucasian, middle-aged men. So when you have that, and then you have your publication, Rewrite Reads, that is presenting a different kind of narrative that draws me to it. Because as I said, when I was growing up, the narrative was Malawi is poor, you don't want to go there, this and that. Even just reading through the reports, like the World Bank reports, IMF reports, it talks about the country being poor, 50% living in poverty. But then there's other things, there's so much beauty in this place. So that kind of narrative needs to go out there, not just focus on what the people are going through, like the poverty and stuff. But there's a whole lot of things that we can talk about.
And that actually leads me to my last question, which in a way builds on what you're doing with the Zimbabwean association, and I guess what we're doing in rewrites. And usually the question would be, what are some of the challenges you face as a woman in photography? But I want to flip that if we're rewriting the narrative and ask, what are some positives and positive experiences you have faced as a woman living in Malawi doing photography?
Well, it's quite exciting because there are very few women that actually practice photojournalism, which is the genre that I do. There are very few women, and then you're out in the field, people are fascinated and people are willing to talk to you. People are willing to be photographed, which is a plus, really. It's different from Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a bit difficult to work under. I've experienced problems in this field. But here, it's really lovely. It's quite friendly. You can work without any fear. It's quite free to work in Malawi.
That sounds amazing. And I'm just going to say again, so it's www.zafp.org. And so is that then the Zimbabwean Association of Female Photographers?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that
Okay,
is.
great. And I guess, is there any other place online that we can find you?
Well, my digital footprint is limited. I am on Twitter and on Instagram, and my handle is at Angjimu, Angjimu. But I've been exhausted lately.
I can feel you on
Social
that.
media has exhausted me, so I've taken a bit of a break, but there's still some work on there. I post here and there.
Don't worry, I've heard resting is revolutionary, so definitely a break sounds amazing. And I just want to say thank you so much, Angela, for sharing your photos with us, for us being able to also get a bit more insight into the feelings behind it. And thank you so much. And I'm going to call next to the stage Tanisha.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Tanisha.
Hello, how are you?
I am fine, thank you. And it's very nice to meet you. I'm sure it's very, very sunny where you are. I hope not, and
Yes,
it's not, or is it raining? I don't know.
yeah, it's a bit hot. I had to turn on the fan. You know, I
Uh,
just noticed we both have on red
ah,
lipstick.
nice. This
It's
is
crazy.
also
I barely
yesterday.
wear red.
I was gonna use barely wear it, but yesterday and today is the first time I've worn lipstick well, I guess since lockdown started because I haven't really had the
I'm
need
actually
to.
I actually usually I only wear nude lipsticks. I like
Uh,
pink and beige and things like that to match my color. But I had to do something and it required red lips. So I was like, you know what? We'll make this work. And here we are. Match it.
We're
It's
very happy
crazy.
you're wearing red today for the launch. We feel very honored. But um I loved your poem. I'm just gonna be straight up and honest.
Thank
And
you so much.
it was a story, but it was a poem, and you packed so much into 3 verses. And I thought, wow, I want to know more. So I guess before we get into you reading your poem and us finding them all, can you tell us a bit about it and why you submitted it to Rewrite Reads?
Yeah, so the poem builds on this saying that we have in the Bahamas about hot Guinness and what drinking hot Guinness does. So I wanted to follow two characters, two girl characters, adolescents. One is the narrator that doesn't have a name, and another one is Nisha, her best friend, and they're basically inside of this closet, and we sort of see the workings of these two girls trying to abort um, or try to cancel a pregnancy. So yeah, that's basically what it's about.
You say that so simply, and then we're going to hear it, and you're like, there's more to the story. So before we get into
Yeah.
that, why this poem? I was going to call it a story because it is a story. It's like a poem in, it's like a, I don't know, a poem in verse or a story in verse. But
Mm-hmm.
why rewrite reads?
So for me, especially when I'm writing things from culture, I particularly like to seek out Black publications and publications around the diaspora, simply because I want it to have a readership where it can touch other people that can relate to it, and also just to support Black publishers. So yeah, that's typically how I choose whenever I have a piece that I'm writing. I'm very specific about where I want to publish it. So with Rewrite Reads, what was very specific about it was that it supported Black women. So it sort of was reminiscent of when I published with Sweet Thang Zine. I'm not sure if you know that publisher, but they're really great as well. They publish a lot of Black women and femme authors and artists inside their magazine. So yeah, I chose Rewrite Reads. I think I found it. It was either a friend that suggested it to me, or I found it somehow on Instagram, and they were like, "Hey, you should check them out." So I checked it out. I really like the fact that you support writers in terms of offering courses and programs. So I just said, why not? Let's see what they say about this. Because I guess for me, the experience that I have a lot of times when I'm writing work that involves a lot of Caribbean Creole, I often have this hinge in my mind that I'm going to be rejected because people won't get it. But I think that's also what drives me to intentionally like submit Creole works and works that are very much built around the culture in the Bahamas, so that I can challenge the editors to sort of look at a new narrative that they might have never considered and see how it connects, and to see the similarities of other readers across different cultures of the African diaspora.
Well, it definitely connected with me, and it connected with our readers as well, that read all the entries. And I guess it'd be just great to hear it. Over to you.
Okay. So let me pull it up. Okay. What Guinness does do to Guppies? 1. After finishing the first bottle of hot Guinness, my tongue quivers, neck recoiling into chin. The bitter taste is nastier than forewarned. Bae, I hope this work, I exclaimed to Nisha the minute I could catch my breath. This moment is nothing like Rami making me Cersei. It don't settle the same. Missed periods, the dark of my best friend's closet. With 3 for 7s, I had to beg Uncle Tony to buy. What y'all guppies know about man bear? 2. The more I drink, the more I become drunk in doubt, wondering whether these old wives, who I imagine never even drank from a bottle, was right about lizards and fish dreams and these kitchen remedies. Nisha reassures me. Say her big cousin do it before, so it must did work. While I finish the second one, Nisha gets up to reach under her skirt and pull down her blouse. 2 of them should be good, man. She leaves, folding open the wooden closet. Hurry, go straighten up before they know we missing. I stay behind and shoot for 3. 3. Uncapping the bottle in a hasty motion, the elixir froths and crackles inside my mouth. Small leaks drip to stain a dark amber on my chest. I'm ready, I thought, to swell, to weather the storm of awkward stares, to navigate the sea of disappointment alone. The day you get pregnant is the day you move out, are Mummy's words playing over and over in my head. And I am just not ready to be a statistic, to be a single mother. He doesn't want to be around, and we are not us anymore. Downing 3 bottles of Guinness, swallowing as if it's water, breathing as if it's air, my feeble thumbs praying to knock a guppy out of this circle of being. That's it. Thank you.
That was powerful. Here, I feel like I need to do this, but you can't see that in my with my background. That was so powerful. Listening
you.
to it as well, I was like, wow. Um, and I found your poetry raw. I found it experimental. I found it strong, and you began to touch on it, saying that you infuse Creole into your style, and you try and challenge people who aren't expecting your work. But I would love to just find out more about your style. If you can just, I don't know, give me a masterclass on Tanisha.
Well, particularly with each poem, with this poem specifically, I normally don't do the 1, 2, 3 sections within a prose. But when I first wrote it, I was like, man, this missing something. Like this just seeing, it just sound bland. So I said, okay, well, what if I section it off in numbers? And the number 3 represents the amount of bottles, obviously, that she has to take, but it's also like a ladder into a deeper consciousness or a deeper sense of emotion. So when I decided to separate it like that, I said, okay, now I can build on this and I can make the emotions more complex and deeper, and I suggest more immersive. But other than that, my style is usually, I guess I would say my style obviously involves a lot of culture. It involves a lot of landscape, a lot of sayings, a lot of folk tales. And it's sort of very figurative because I still like that sense of mystique and mystery. And also in the inclusion of language. Not all of my poems include Creole in it, but when they don't, there is still an essence that can direct you to the understanding that I am a Bahamian woman, or I'm a Black woman, or I'm a woman of African descent. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. And you've again started to touch upon it, the complexity in your poem, and particularly in this one you submitted to us. But it was also, and you said it a bit, it was a ladder, but I also found it quite lyrical, and even more lyrical once you started reading it. So how did you, and I felt I was there with those two characters. And when she pulled it out of her dress, I was like, what's she pulling out her dress and why? So I'd love to know.
I have to laugh because I'm not sure if you guys in London have the same uniform as us, but in high school and middle school, you have the white blouse, and then you have like this thick band, and it's a pleated skirt that goes down, right? And sometimes the blouse gets, it gets unraveled, like it gets messy. So constantly you're just like walking around school or like going in the bathroom to yuck down your skirt because you want it to accentuate your waist and you want it to look clean. So I felt like I needed to add that piece in. But I guess in terms of lyrical and how am I able to write lyrically, it's so many things. I guess I could point out 3 things. One is journaling. I find that a poet or a writer that journals a lot, you're forced to sit with yourself, be introspective, and be gut-wrenchingly honest. Especially since you're not expecting anyone to read your journal. So when you're able to dive into the world of the self, so many thought patterns, so many ideas, and so many emotions come up in that journaling process. And I've been journaling since I was a little kid because I felt like I could never express what it is I really wanted to say. The second one is spoken word. So when I started out writing, of course, I started out the very academic way, the rhyme scheme, A, B, A, B. But when I would say I turned like 18, 19, I found spoken word. I found a lot of spoken word open mics in my city, but then also there was Brave New Voices, there was Strivers Row coming up, there was Def Jam Poetry. So I had a lot of poets to look up to, who are gut-wrenchingly honest as the journals. And I felt like I didn't find that in traditional poetic writing, you know? Not to say that traditional poetic writing can't be emotional and can't move you in a certain way, but it's something about a spoken word artist, their craft, their skill, to be able to stand on a stage and to be able to not only be straight up in what it is, whatever emotion they're trying to display, or they're being straight up with the story that they're telling, and also being able to accentuate that with the voice. And then at the same time, still having like that swagger of a rapper and that lyricism. I felt like me starting out as a young adult in spoken word, it very much, I guess, informed me on how to be lyrical, but then also to be emotional. And then the final part is just music and being musical and being melodic and not necessarily rhythmic. So there's a difference. So I feel like a lot of time, just paying attention to the way that we speak in our diction here locally is very musical. You know, like Bahamians are just very, oh, you going to the bathroom, mate? Oh, you going down the mall? Like it goes up and down. And that's the way that I speak. So I love being able to hear that in writing. I love being able to hear like these subtle changes in pitch and just the way that the words dance as you read them across the page. So those three things really influence the lyric aspect of my work. But I guess another thing that I want to talk about is just subtle details in the piece. So what Guinness does to Guppy is it's a lot of moving parts and objects in there, right? I talked about the culture of the Guinness, so we got that one out of the way. I chose to not give the narrator a name because I wanted the reader to be able to see themselves or to see someone else in that. And I chose the name Nisha because I just felt like it was such a common name here. Like there's always a Tanisha, a Kanisha, a Gardisha. So I chose to give the supporting character name, and I chose to leave no name for the narrator because I wanted people to be able to see themselves. Then other part is the Guppy aspect. I got a lot of comments about that and what is a Guppy. So
it's a fish, isn't it?
A Guppy is two things.
Ah.
So a guppy is a baby fish. So like a lot of times you'd say guppy fish is like a tiny little fish. So I mentioned inside the poem fish dreams. So we believe here that if you either see a baby lizard inside your house, you're pregnant.
Okay.
If you dream of fish, you're pregnant. And what's the other one? Anyway, we'll leave those for now. So I chose the Guppy because the Guppy can represent a fish, but then it also can represent the biggest ball in a game of marbles. So as a kid, we played shooting marbles a lot. I would come over to Nassau for the summer and I'd be with all my cousins and we'd just be outside barefoot in the road, just drawing like the big circle, because you have to draw a big circle. So we drew the circle with the dirt. And then we would just have the marbles set up and you always put the Guppy in the middle. It's the biggest ball. So it's almost like pool. So the kids are just like bending down, just shooting the small marbles out, and whoever gets to knock the Guppy out, they win, supposedly. This has been a long time. I may be wrong.
But I won't quote you on it.
But the last line that says, downing 3 bottles of Guinness, swallowing as if it's water, breathing as if it's air, my feeble thumbs praying to knock a guppy out of this circle of being. So that specifically that specifically indicates to the reader that this guppy has 2 meanings. One, it could mean a fish, and that relates to pregnancy, but it can also relate to Guppy in shooting marbles, and how that relates to adolescence and immaturity and childhood and just growing up. So these 2 characters, they are sitting in this closet, this still place, but at the same time, they're between 2 worlds, because they're trying to be adult, right? They're trying to go about this the adult way. They're trying to handle it themselves. You know, Nisha asks her cousin, so it must be right. So we can handle this. But then at the same time, you gotta ask your uncle to buy the bears for you. So it definitely is trying to. I was definitely trying to not only tell the story, but also show the I guess the crossroads, show that I guess that middle part, that central part in a girlhood, in your adolescence, where you're not technically a child, but at the same time you're not fully an adult yet, and you can become so impressionable. And another detail I noticed in the piece was that I intentionally didn't mention anything of a pregnancy stick or a pregnancy stick or proof that she was pregnant, just the indication that she missed her period. And I feel like a lot of female readers can, I guess, grasp that experience of thinking you're pregnant when you kissed a boy because your parents told you.
That's how you get pregnant. It is.
Right. So it leaves a lot of nuance in there, because all of that sort of describes the characters, these characters that don't know themselves, but they're still trying to figure it out.
I have so many other follow-up questions, but we're also out of time. So it's so hard. There's so many other things. But to say I didn't grow up in the UK, I grew up in Nigeria, and totally can relate to the uniforms and tucking it in, particularly when you get to a certain age, because you want to look good and neat. So I totally get that. And like I said, there's so many other things I would love to ask more of, but we don't have time. But also totally agree on the power of journaling. I've been journaling since I was 13. It's a space that you can be vulnerable without anyone interfering with it whatsoever. And maybe
it's literally your mic. No one can take away your mic.
Right? I love that. But I'm just gonna ask, what's next?
Yeah, so I'm currently working on my debut collection. So I've just been sort of spending a lot of time at home editing, coming up with different ideas, and then also just documenting my thought process throughout it, things that I might have come across, subjects or different mediums that might be helpful in that. It's a very long process, but I feel like once it's written, everything else is just easier. So that's what I'm working on now. I also have a publication coming out with Lungs. It's sort of it's a group publication that I did last year. So I'm hoping that it comes out before I'm finished with the collection, but it's still within that similar theme of the inescapable blue. So yeah.
And I guess, where can we find you on the internet, social media, and so on and so forth?
Yes. So you can find me at tanisiapratt.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at Nefertiti, like Nefertiti, but instead of TD, it's Nici.
Nice. Thank you so much. And it's really, really great speaking with you. And I wish we had more time to speak, but I'm gonna call to the stage. It's very weird saying stage, but this virtual space, Jennifer Kelly, and thank you again, Tanisha.
Hi, nice talking to you.
Bye.
Hey, Zara.
Hello, Jen. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I think I'm pumped. I'm very excited. It's always really great to hear the background behind what everyone is doing and everyone's writing. So of course, the first question I'm going to ask you, as with Angela and Tanisha, is to tell us a bit about your story searching and why Rewrite Reads.
Sure. So I first just want to say thank you so much for having me on here and having me on a platform with Angela and Tanisha, who are incredible. I love their work. So I just wanted to say that and give kudos and appreciation. My piece Searching is really sort of about the journey of loss and friendship and how sometimes friendships run their course. I think that most people can relate to that. And I mean, I certainly do. And I chose Rewrite just because, well, so I'll start here. When I started writing Searching, this past year has left a lot of space for me and introspection and kind of just thinking about relationships and life and how things have changed. And it also has left a lot of time to be on social media. And I've done a lot of I don't want to say stalking, but just like social media observing of what's going on. And I really started to think about the friendships that I've had and the friendships that have ended. And I just started writing about it one day. And it wasn't originally something that I was going to submit to publish anywhere. It was just something I wanted to write for myself. But, we were talking and I was seeing that the theme of the Lit Mag was changes. And I thought if there's anywhere that I would feel safe submitting this to, it would be Rewrite. I mean, I know you and Christina, I know how much you champion Black women and women of color writers. And it just felt like something that I wanted to do. So yeah.
And that's great. I'm gonna go into more detail about the story, ask you questions, but it'd be really great if you could give us a reading from your story.
Sure. Let me just pull it up. Okay. I miss you, but that's not surprising. I've heard that it's always harder for those of us left behind. We're forced to fill the void of you, the lights and shadows that make up the curves of your face, the width of your nose, the brightness of your eyes. We hear phantom laughter in your old haunts, the nooks and crannies of our lives that only you can occupy. You face different challenges now. You have to shade your eyes from a new kind of unbridled sun, high in the sky, unimpeded by the skyscrapers and low-hanging clouds here at home, until you learn to bask in it. You'll be uneasy with the newfound silence, interrupted only by an occasional car, birds, and cicadas, until the silence becomes the music to the soundtrack of your new life, until it becomes a lullaby that eases you to sleep. What's it like out there? I imagine you looking out on rolling hills of lush green, dark grass, covered in dew in the early morning hours. I imagine old red brick buildings covered in ivy with dark wood floors and huge windows to let the light stream in, that lets your light shine out. It matches you perfectly. Devoted, I wait for you to return my calls while I sit in my cramped studio apartment where we used to stay up all night laughing in my bed. We'd lament my 6th floor walk up and declare that one day we'd move into a building with an elevator. Or better yet, we'd leave the city and take on suburbia together. We'd find neighboring homes with identical yards. We'd paint the walls whatever color we wanted. No board or management company could tell us whether or not we could have pets. You've almost made it. I want to believe you're just too busy with adjusting to everything that is so novel and unfamiliar, but I spoke with Julia the other day. She says she hears from you regularly, that you're doing well. And so I'll just stop there.
Wow. I could listen to you read that all day. Have you ever thought about narrating for audiobooks?
When I think of like all the odd jobs that I would kind of like to do, that's something that I've thought of, but not seriously. But I
Because
will.
no,
You know?
that was amazing to read or listen to. And your story, it again, I've probably said this for every single story in the issue, but it's because I believe it was powerful. It was it was sad because many of us could relate to it, and we're used to reading about romantic breakups. We're used to watching movies about it, like we have that down. But there's something deeply painful about loss of friendship. So it'd be great to hear from you the process of writing it, the feelings you went through, putting it down, and then having something so clearly must have been deeply personal then made public.
Yeah. So I mean, I think, like I said, I was sort of just on social media, and I'd been talking about with just different people about, you know, the friendships that I've had through my life, and really examining them and how some of them have played out. And I think that I was just sort of on social media and I realized I felt away. So I wanted to kind of to expend that energy. And in the process of writing it, it really was sort of kind of, I wouldn't say closure, but it did help kind of heal some of those feelings. And I think that kind of working through the journey and thinking about how important these friendships were to me. And it's interesting that you say that we're used to reading about romantic relationships, because a few people that I sent the original versions of this story to said that it read romantically, right? Like it read like this was a romantic relationship. And I think that our friendships really can feel that way. The intensity of them, the deepness of them, the importance of them can mirror almost romantic relationships. And so it wasn't a conscious decision to talk about friendship as opposed to romantic relationships, but it was. I don't think I thought about that as I was going into it, but as I was getting feedback, it really I think solidified for me how deeply and how painful kind of a relationship breakup can be. And to answer your other, I mean, it was very scary to put it out. I mean, it felt very vulnerable. It's a very, it was very much, this is a very personal, and to put it out for the world, was very scary. Um, but I'm glad I did. It feels good to have it out there. And as I said before, if I knew I would do it anywhere, I knew it would be in such a safe space, as Rewrite. Yeah.
Well, we're very glad that you did. And I wanted to ask a bit more, moving a bit away from the theme of the story to a bit more about the form and the style, because it's something I noticed in when you were writing it was there were these chunks, but then these one-liners. And as I read the one-liners, like it matches you perfectly, you've almost made it. I couldn't be happier for you. You don't need me anymore. Like with those lines, you get deeper and deeper and deeper into the feeling. So it'd be really great to hear more about how you structured it, how you wrote it.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really unsatisfying answer, but I think it came out that way. I think for me, when I'm writing, the stories come out in whatever way that they come out. So whether that's poetry or prose or how it's kind of structured. And I think in writing it, it was really more of this is a definitive statement that I want to make, or this is a direct communication with the person that I am talking to. Right. So it is and it's I to you. And I want to make this definitive statement or ask you this question, because I think really those are some of the thoughts and questions that I've had for people who were very close friends of mine who are no longer in my life. Like, what is it like where you are now? I don't know. Like, tell me about it. Like, how are you? You don't need me anymore. And that hurts. And just sort of being very direct with that, I guess.
But it's also in your directness, it's really powerful, but it's also really painful because I read your story and I could relate. And similar to you, I was thinking about all the friendships that have come and gone and what's happening. And I remember we were speaking a bit about it and how there's experiences of, for instance, losing friends once they've got married. Like they no longer want to have the single friend. So it just was really great. And another thing I noticed is you were able to, in such a short story, capture what felt like years. Because it felt like their relationship, lasted for decades, and you had the past, the present, and I feel even the future with the wedding. So even that as well would be really nice to find out a bit more about.
I think they're sort of reflections of different friendships that I've had that have ended this way. So they're all sort of speaking to, and obviously in a very fictionalized way, but to specific experiences. And those have spanned from, my middle school years, so 11, 12, 13 to into my late 20s. And so everything that's being referenced in there, I think that was able to, having those different points of reference help me kind of create a structure of a narrative that goes from that makes it over a long period of time, because they were. I also just wanted to say that in writing this and reading it back and editing it, it made me think of like all the times that I have also probably done this to people. So it kind of, I like that it's helped me not just think about all the times that I've been hurt, but also sort of think about how I may have hurt other people as well, and to hopefully not do that again in the future and learn from that. Yeah.
That's a really beautiful way to do it, because it's also in a way reflecting a mirror to yourself through the story. I wish I said I did that reflection and was like, when have I done it to others? But clearly I'm not that introspective just yet. I'll get there one day. But I wonder if, again, like with everyone else, I could spend forever speaking to you, but I'm also aware of time. And I wanted to know, like, what's next with you, for you?
I'm not quite sure. Right now, I'm working on a collection of pieces. I don't know if they'll all be stories, kind of focused on the theme of desire in all its forms. So that's what I'm working on right now. But long term, I'm not quite sure where I'm going at.
Oh my God, and I want to ask you about desire and what it means and how do you write about desire? But I guess we can save that for another time when it's done. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of our launch and the end of our 2-day launch. I wondered if it's possible for Tanisha to come back on. Angela, I know you have problems with your video and your internet connection, but it'd be really great to just say bye and thanks again. And yeah, just say it's a wrap. And to anyone, our stories in the second issue can be found on rewritereads.com. And if you didn't watch the first day, it's available on YouTube. And I'm also going to do what I did yesterday and do it again and say thank you to Christina, who is probably not going to like the shout out, but a huge thank you to you, Christina. But yeah, if there's any final words from Jen, Tanisha, Angela, the floor is yours. I see Tanisha shaking her head, so I take that as
I was trying to fix my bang. Yeah, I guess I can start. I would just like to say thank you so much for having this platform. Thank you so much for the launch and having me here. It was just really great to listen to everyone and see your works. All of the contributors did such an amazing job, and I'm just so proud of y'all. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for the great work that you're doing. The opportunity to present is amazing. You know, you've got an amazing platform. So keep up the good work. Thank you.
Jen, you were going to go in?
Oh, I was just going to say thank you again for having me. And Tanisha and Angela, I'm huge fans of yours, so it's been wonderful to share this, virtual stage with you guys. And thank you, Zara, and thank you, Christina.
And have a lovely day. And it's a wrap from us. And I'll be saying, you can't see me with the background, but